Why does silence feel so dangerous when everyone around you is laughing? The beer hit her jacket before she even heard the glass tip. Golden liquid soaking through denim, dripping onto worn leather, pooling on the bar stool beneath her. Jessica Walker didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even look up from her phone, just sat there, still as stone, while 50 pairs of eyes turned to watch what would happen next. "Oops, my bad, sweetheart." The voice belonged to Rodriguez, Navy SEAL, arms like tree trunks, bald head gleaming under neon lights, blue military t-shirt stretched tight across a chest built by Bud's training and 1,000 tactical operations. He was smiling, the kind of smile that said he'd done this before, the kind that expected fear. Jessica set her phone down slowly, deliberately, like she had all the time in the world. Her light brown hair was twisted into a messy bun, loose curls framing a face marked by freckles and exhaustion, green eyes catching the bar light, fair skin that hadn't seen enough sun, the look of someone who just finished a 12-hour shift and wanted nothing more than a quiet drink before heading home. "This ain't a place for tourists, baby." Rodriguez leaned in closer, whiskey breath. "Proximity meant to intimidate. Anchor Point is for real warriors. You should head home." Behind him, his teammates erupted. High fives, laughter. The performance was working. This was their show, their territory, their moment of dominance over someone who didn't belong. The entire bar watched. Over 50 patrons, mostly military personnel and veterans, turning this humiliation into entertainment. Phones sliding out of pockets, screens lighting up. Because in the age of viral content, public degradation was currency. Jessica reached for the napkin dispenser, pulled out a stack, started blotting the beer with slow, methodical movements, like she was dressing a wound, like she'd done this exact motion 1,000 times in different contexts. Her hands moved with precision, no wasted effort, no emotion. Rodriguez laughed louder, mistook her silence for weakness. "Hey, I'm talking to you." His hand clamped down on her wrist, massive fingers circling her forearm, and that's when everything changed. Later, when reviewing the videos that would flood social media, Rodriguez would pinpoint this exact moment as the biggest mistake of his life. When his fingers touched skin marked by a faint circular scar, the kind that looked suspiciously like an old bullet wound. What followed happened so fast that nobody in the bar could agree on what they'd actually seen. 1 second, Rodriguez was standing, dominant, in control. The next, he was face down on the bar, his arm twisted behind his back in a textbook restraint hold, his cheek pressed against polished wood, his eyes wide with shock and pain. The entire establishment fell silent. Not a single voice, not a clink of glass, just stunned, absolute quiet. No one had seen Jessica move. Master Chief Fletcher sat in the corner booth, whiskey glass halfway to his lips, frozen in place. 25 years in special operations had taught him to recognize certain things: the transition from seated to standing, the precise angle of that arm lock, the distribution of weight that kept a man twice her size completely immobilized. These weren't self-defense class moves. This was muscle memory, drilled into someone through thousands of repetitions in environments where failure meant death. "Let him go." Captain Hayes stepped forward, the lone female Navy officer in Rodriguez's group, blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun, posture radiating authority, voice carrying the weight of rank and institutional power. "You just assaulted a United States Navy SEAL. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you're in?" Jessica released Rodriguez, sat back down on her stool as if nothing had happened, picked up her phone, glanced at the screen, set it aside. Her movements unhurried, deliberate, like someone conserving energy for a long shift ahead. Rodriguez pushed himself up from the bar, his face flushed red with embarrassment and rage. He rubbed his wrist where her grip had left marks, visible impressions. "Lucky shot," he muttered, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty. In all his years of training through buds and advanced operator courses, he'd never been taken down that quickly, that cleanly, that efficiently. "A water, please." Jessica's voice carried a slight Midwest accent, soft edges, nothing threatening. With ice. Jake, the bartender, studied her with new interest as he filled a glass. Former Army Ranger. Sleeves of military tattoos covering both arms. 3 years working at Anchor Point meant he'd seen every kind of military posturing and civilian confrontation imaginable. But this was different. The woman's request for water instead of another beer. The way her eyes had already cataloged every exit, every potential weapon, every person who might pose a threat. These were habits that couldn't be taught in a weekend seminar. That was Krav Maga. The slurred voice came from the corner. Thompson, a grizzled veteran in his 50s, wearing a faded army jacket, swayed slightly as he stood. His eyes, though glazed with alcohol, held sharpness. Recognition. Military Krav Maga, not the watered-down gym version. Lucky grab is all, Dmitri called out from his table near the dartboard. Private military contractor, built like a refrigerator. 250 pounds of muscle earned in conflict zones where rules of engagement were suggestions, not laws. His Slavic accent thick with amusement. Little nurse probably watched YouTube video. The word rippled through the crowd. Nurse. Someone had recognized Jessica from the hospital, had seen her in scrubs at Coronado Medical Center. The narrative quickly formed. A tired healthcare worker had somehow gotten lucky against an elite operator. The crowd's tension eased slightly, replaced by anticipation. The kind that preceded every bar fight in military towns. Marcus the bouncer moved closer. 6'4", former Marine. Face suggesting too many close encounters with IEDs, but Fletcher raised a hand subtly and Marcus paused. Something in the Master Chief's expression suggested this needed to play out. The door chimed. Elena Rodriguez rushed in, still wearing her hospital ID badge. No relation to the SEAL. Her eyes found Jessica immediately, concern flashing across her face. She'd worked alongside Jessica in the ER for 2 years, had seen her handle everything from gang shootings to multi-car pileups with a calm that came from somewhere deeper than medical training. Jessica gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Elena stopped, understanding the unspoken message, found a seat at the bar, close enough to help, far enough to avoid escalation. You got lucky. Rodriguez had recovered his composure, falling back on bravado that had carried him through countless missions. But luck runs out. How about we settle this properly, arm wrestling, right here, right now? His teammates cheered. This was familiar territory, a contest of pure strength where technique mattered less than raw power. Rodriguez had never lost an arm wrestling match on his team. His biceps were the size of most people's heads, forearms corded with muscle from years of specialized training. Jessica took a sip of water. No, thank you. Scared? Captain Hayes interjected, voice carrying particular condescension reserved for civilians who didn't understand military hierarchy. I don't blame you. Beating someone in a surprise attack is one thing. Facing them in a real contest is another. The crowd grew. Other patrons abandoned pool games and conversations to form a loose circle around the developing drama. Someone had started a live stream. Multiple phones captured every angle. Social media gold. Tell me something. Jessica turned slightly to face Hayes, her voice calm, almost conversational. Third phase of Bud's training, week 5. What's the standard procedure for underwater not tying when your dive buddy experiences shallow water blackout? The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. It was specific, too specific, the kind of detail that couldn't be found on Wikipedia or military fan sites, the kind of knowledge that only came from being there. Hayes blinked. What? The procedure, Jessica repeated patiently. Underwater not tying. Shallow water blackout. Week 5, third phase. She paused. Or we could discuss the radio protocols for multi-team insertions during adverse weather conditions. Your choice. The bar had gone quiet again, but this silence was different. This was the silence of people realizing they'd miscalculated, badly. Fletcher stood up from his booth, slowly, deliberately, every eye in the bar tracking his movement. When a master chief with 25 years of experience moves, people pay attention. "What's your call sign?" His voice cut through the tension, direct, no bullshit. Jessica looked at him for the first time, really looked at him. And in that moment, Fletcher saw something he'd seen in mirrors for decades. The 1,000-yard stare. The weight of things witnessed and things done. The particular weariness that came from carrying secrets that couldn't be shared. "I asked you a question," Fletcher said quietly. "What's your call sign?" The entire bar held its breath. Jessica set down her water glass. The faint clink against the bar was the only sound. She stood up, all 5'6" of her, light brown hair, freckled face, looking like someone's tired sister after a long shift, looking absolutely unremarkable. Except for her eyes. Those green eyes that had cataloged every threat, every exit, every potential weapon. Those eyes that had seen things most people only encountered in nightmares. Viper 1. 2 words, spoken quietly, almost casually, but they detonated in that bar like a flashbang grenade. Rodriguez went pale, actually pale, the color draining from his face like someone had opened a valve. Hayes stepped backward, 1 step, 2, her hand unconsciously moving to where a sidearm would normally rest. Dimitri, the contractor who'd called her a little nurse, stopped mid-drink, glass frozen halfway to his lips, eyes wide. Because they knew that call sign. Every operator knew that call sign. Every contractor, every spec ops veteran. It was legend. Myth. The kind of story that got passed around in classified briefings and late-night conversations in places that didn't officially exist. Viper 1, Delta Force sniper, 63 confirmed kills over 7 years of deployment, holder of the longest confirmed kill in Operation Enduring Freedom, the ghost of Helmand Province, the operator who disappeared during a black op in Kandahar, presumed KIA, memorial service held, name on the wall. Dead for 10 years. Except she was standing right there, in a gray t-shirt, covered in beer, looking like someone who just wanted to go home. Fletcher's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet, pulled out a challenge coin, walked across the bar, stood in front of Jessica, and without a word offered the coin, the traditional gesture of respect between operators, the acknowledgement that transcended rank and service and time. Jessica stared at the coin for a long moment. Her jaw tightened, something flickering behind her eyes. Old pain, old choices, old ghosts. "I'm just a nurse now," she said quietly. "Bullshit." Fletcher's voice was gentle but firm. "You can retire from the job, you can't retire from who you are." Rodriguez stood frozen. His earlier bravado evaporated, replaced by shame. The kind that came from realizing he'd bullied a legend, that his 15 minutes of entertainment had just cost him something he couldn't get back. Respect. His own and everyone else's. Hayes moved forward slowly, stopped, rendered a salute, perfect form, the kind reserved for superior officers and fallen comrades. Jessica didn't return it, just picked up her phone, looked at the screen one more time, set it back down, and for the first time since the beer had hit her jacket, she smiled, small, sad, the smile of someone who'd tried to leave something behind and failed. "The drink's on me, Master Chief," Fletcher said, gesturing to the bartender. "For Viper 1." "For Viper 1," Jake repeated, already pouring. And slowly, one by one, every person in that bar who'd worn a uniform, who'd deployed, who'd seen combat, raised their glass. Not in celebration. In remembrance. For the ghost who'd walked among them. For the warrior who'd chosen healing over killing. For the woman they'd underestimated so completely. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who looks the weakest, and sometimes dignity doesn't demand recognition. It simply exists, quiet, unbreakable, waiting for the moment when silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. Have you ever wondered what it costs to become a ghost? Jessica Walker stood in her apartment that night staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The beer-stained jacket hung over the shower rod. Her phone kept buzzing. Messages, notifications. The video was everywhere now. Viral. Millions of views and climbing. The bar incident. The reveal. Her call sign spoken aloud for the first time in a decade. The ghost of Helmand Province had been resurrected, and she hadn't wanted that. Not even a little bit. She touched the scar on her wrist, the one Rodriguez's fingers had found, entry wound from a 7.62 round. Karachi, 2013. A mission that never happened in a city she'd never officially visited. The bullet had shattered bone, severed nerves, required 3 surgeries and 8 months of physical therapy. It had ended her career as a sniper. Precision shooting requires steady hands. Hers would never be steady again. That's when she'd become Viper 1 in a different way. Not just a sniper, an operator, full package, close quarters combat, tactical planning, hostage rescue. The things that didn't require a perfectly still trigger finger. The things that required someone willing to walk into hell and bring people out. Her phone buzzed again. Fletcher, a text message, simple, direct. "We need to talk, tomorrow, 800 you know where." She did know where. The Memorial Garden at Naval Base Coronado, where names were etched in stone, where her name used to be before someone with clearance higher than God had quietly removed it, because ghosts didn't get memorials, ghosts just disappeared. Jessica sat on her couch, exhausted, not from the confrontation. That had been easy, muscle memory, but from the exposure, from being seen. From having her carefully constructed life as a normal ER nurse cracked open for the world to examine. She'd built this life deliberately. ER nurse, anonymous, helpful, healing instead of killing, trading precision shots for precision stitches, trading tactical insertions for trauma interventions. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't legendary, but it was clean, it was good. It was penance for all the things she'd done in places that didn't exist. Her laptop sat open on the coffee table. She pulled it closer, typed in a password she hadn't used in years, accessed an encrypted server that technically she shouldn't have access to anymore. But old accounts never really die. They just go dormant. There it was, her service record, classified, redacted. 11 pages that somehow captured 7 years of deployment and made it sound bureaucratic. Citations, commendations, mission summaries that said everything and nothing at the same time. Operation Nightfall, Kandahar Province, hostage rescue, 4 American contractors held by Taliban fighters, 3-person team, Viper 1, Sierra 2 and Blackjack, insertion at 300 hours, extraction at 547 hours, all 4 hostages recovered alive. 11 enemy KIA, 0 friendly casualties. That was the official version, the version in the files. The real version was different, always was. The real version included the boy, 13, maybe 14 years old, standing guard outside the compound, AK-47 in his hands, eyes wide and scared, too young to be there, too young to die, but old enough to raise that rifle, old enough to become a threat. She'd had him in her sights, perfect shot, center mass, he'd never even know what happened. Sierra 2 had been on comms. "You have the shot, take it." But she hadn't, not immediately. Instead, she'd watched, waited, seen his hands trembling, seen him glance back at the compound door, not like a soldier checking his post, like a child afraid of getting in trouble. "Viper 1, do you copy? You have the shot." She'd lowered her rifle, switched to her sidearm, moved in close, got within 15 feet before he'd noticed her. The look on his face, not determination, not hatred, terror, pure, absolute terror. A child who knew he was about to die. She'd used the Pashto she'd learned, spoken quietly, put down the rifle, walk away, live. He'd dropped the AK-47 like it was on fire, run into the darkness, disappeared, and she'd never put it in her report, never told anyone except Blackjack, who'd seen the whole thing through his scope and never said a word. 3 months later, that same compound, different mission. She'd been there, reconnaissance, and she'd seen him, the boy, alive, working in a field, no rifle, no tactical vest, just a kid doing farm work, living. That's when she'd known she was done killing, done being Viper 1 in the way everyone understood. She'd put in for discharge quietly, through channels that existed for operators who couldn't operate anymore, physical injury, mental health, personal reasons. The paperwork had gone through. She'd been processed out, given a new identity, a fresh start. Except the final mission, the one that was supposed to be routine, intelligence gathering, in and out, no contact expected. But intelligence is only as good as the sources, and sometimes sources lie. The ambush had been perfect, coordinated, like they'd known exactly where the team would be. Viper 1, Sierra 2, Blackjack, and 2 support operators. 5 against 30, in terrain that offered no cover and no escape routes. Sierra 2 had died in the first 30 seconds. Headshot, clean, professional. Blackjack had taken a round through the thigh, femoral artery, bleeding out. The 2 support operators pinned down, separated, no comms. And Viper 1 had done what Viper 1 did. She'd created chaos, moved through their positions like smoke, dropping targets, covering angles, buying time for extraction that might never come. When Blackjack had passed out from blood loss, she'd carried him, 180 pounds of unconscious operator, through 2 clicks of hostile territory, under fire, while coordinating on backup comms for evac. The helicopter had made it, barely, taken fire on approach, but they'd gotten Blackjack out, gotten the support operators out, left Sierra 2 because you don't recover bodies when 30 hostiles are trying to kill you. And Jessica had made a choice. She'd stayed behind, covered the extraction, drew fire, led them away from the LZ. And when the shooting stopped, when she'd run out of ammunition and options, she disappeared, literally disappeared, into the mountains, into the villages, into a life that wasn't hers. For 3 weeks she'd been missing, presumed dead. Her name went on the wall, her family got the flag. The memorial service happened without a body, and she'd let it happen, because Viper 1 needed to die. The person she'd been needed to end so the person she wanted to become could exist. She'd made her way to Kabul, found a contact, a doctor who owed favors to people who knew people, got patched up, got paperwork, got on a transport heading home as a civilian contractor, walked off that plane as Jessica Walker, nobody, and built a life treating gunshot wounds instead of creating them. Now, sitting in her apartment with the laptop glowing, she realized how fragile that life had been. One night in a bar, one confrontation, one spoken call sign, and everything she'd built was compromised. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. The text was brief, no signature, no context needed. Kandahar, 2013. I was the boy with the rifle. You let me live. Thank you. I'm a teacher now. Jessica stared at the screen. Read it again, again. Her hands started shaking, not from fear, from something else. Validation. Proof that mercy wasn't weakness. That choosing not to kill when you could was sometimes the hardest thing. That sometimes the lives you saved mattered more than the lives you took. She typed back, stay safe, keep teaching. The response came immediately, always because of you. And just like that, the weight she'd carried for 11 years lightened, just a fraction, just enough to breathe a little easier, to remember why she'd left, why she'd chosen healing over killing, why she'd walked away from being Viper 1. Her laptop chimed, encrypted message, from an address she recognized, Blackjack, the operator she'd saved, the one who'd bled out in her arms, who'd survived because she'd refused to leave him behind. The message was simple, heard about the bar, you okay? She typed back, yeah, you. Never better, but we have a situation, need your eyes on something, consultation only, no obligations. Jessica closed her eyes. This was how it always started. Consultation, just your opinion, no commitment, until it became commitment, until it became a mission, until you were back in the life you tried to leave. What kind of situation? The response took longer this time, like Blackjack was choosing his words carefully. American teachers, Afghanistan, Taliban got them, we know where, we know when. We need someone who knows the terrain, knows the language, knows how to move like a ghost. Her heart rate picked up, not from excitement, from something darker, recognition. The knowledge that she was exactly what they needed, that her specific skill set, her specific experience made her uniquely qualified for this exact problem. How many teachers? 14, men and women, school in Kandahar province. Taliban raided it, took everyone. We have 72 hours before they move them across the border into Pakistan. After that, they're gone. Jessica stood up, paced her small living room, looked at the medical textbooks on her shelf, the framed nursing certification, the life she'd built, the person she'd tried to become. Then she looked at her hands, steady now, healed, not perfect for precision shooting, but perfect for everything else. She thought about the boy who'd become a teacher, about the message thanking her for letting him live, about 14 more people who deserved the same chance, the same mercy, the same opportunity to survive. "Send me the briefing," she typed. Blackjack's response was immediate, "You're in." Jessica looked at her reflection in the window, saw both versions of herself, the nurse, the operator, the healer, the ghost, and realized maybe they weren't separate. Maybe they never had been. Maybe Viper 1 wasn't about killing. It was about doing what was necessary to protect the innocent, whether that meant pulling a trigger or stitching a wound. "Consultation only," she typed. "I'm not going back to that life." "Understood, briefing incoming, thank you." The files started downloading. Mission parameters, satellite imagery, intelligence reports, hostage profiles, terrain analysis, everything she'd need to assess whether this was possible, whether 14 people could be saved without becoming 15 casualties. Jessica made coffee, strong, black, the way she'd learned to drink it during endless night operations, sat down with her laptop, started reading, her mind automatically shifting gears, from nurse mode to operator mode, from Jessica Walker to Viper 1. By sunrise, she had a plan. Rough, incomplete, but possible. It would require a small team, precision timing, perfect execution, and someone willing to walk into hell with no guarantee of walking back out. She reached for her phone, dialed a number she hadn't called in 10 years. It rang 3 times before connecting. "Fletcher." "Master Chief, it's Viper 1, I need a team." Silence on the other end. Then a sound that might have been a chuckle, might have been a sigh of relief. "When do we leave?" 72 hours. I'll send you the briefing." "Copy that. Good to have you back." "I'm not back," Jessica said quietly. "This is one time, one mission, then I'm done." "Sure," Fletcher said, but there was something in his voice, knowledge, experience, the understanding that people like them never really left, they just took breaks. "Whatever you say, Viper 1." After she hung up, Jessica sat in the growing light, watching dawn break over San Diego, knowing she'd just made a choice, knowing there was no going back from it, knowing that mercy sometimes required violence, that healing sometimes required fighting, that being a ghost meant moving between both worlds. She thought about the 14 teachers, wondered if any of them had students like the boy who'd become a teacher, wondered if saving them would create more ripples, more lives changed, more futures possible. And she realized something. Viper 1 hadn't died 10 years ago. Viper 1 had just evolved, transformed, became something more than a call sign, became a purpose, a reason, a way of protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. The sun rose higher. The city woke up. Somewhere, Rodriguez was probably dealing with the aftermath of viral humiliation. Somewhere, Hayes was processing what she'd learned about underestimating people. Somewhere, the world was moving forward, unaware that a ghost was preparing to walk again. Jessica Walker finished her coffee, closed her laptop, got ready for her shift at the ER because she was still a nurse, still a healer, still committed to saving lives. But now, she'd save them in ways the hospital would never know about. Sometimes the line between healing and fighting isn't as clear as people think. Sometimes you need to fight to create space for healing. And sometimes the ghosts who protect us are the ones we never see, the ones who operate in shadows, the ones who choose mercy when possible and violence only when necessary. Viper 1 was dead. Long live Viper 1. What does it feel like when your past refuses to stay buried? The briefing room at Naval Base Coronado was exactly as Jessica remembered. Sterile, functional, designed for classified conversations that never officially happened. Master Chief Fletcher sat at the head of the table. Next to him, Blackjack, looking older but still carrying himself like a coiled spring. The leg wound had healed, but he walked with a slight limp. Reminder of the day Viper 1 had carried him 2 clicks through hostile fire. 3 other operators filled out the team. Captain Hayes, the woman from the bar, still processing her own miscalculation. Rodriguez, who'd gone from swagger to silence in the span of one viral video. And someone Jessica didn't recognize. A woman, mid-30s, compact build, eyes that had seen things. "This is Amamira," Fletcher said by way of introduction. Dari and Pashto fluent. 5 years with Special Activities Division. If we need to blend in or negotiate, she's our ace. Jessica nodded, studied the woman, saw recognition in those eyes. Amamira knew who Viper 1 was, knew the legends, but there was no judgment there, just professional assessment. "The situation," Blackjack began, pulling up satellite imagery on the screen. 14 teachers, international school in Kandahar province. Taliban raid 3 days ago, all staff taken. Intel suggests they're being held at a compound approximately 40 clicks from the Pakistani border. He clicked through images. The school burned, destroyed, a message. Then the compound, walled, fortified, guard positions marked in red. Estimated enemy strength. Between 20 and 30 fighters, Blackjack answered. Mixed Taliban and foreign fighters, well-armed, motivated. They know we're looking. Jessica leaned forward, studied the terrain, the approach vectors, the sight lines, her mind automatically calculating angles, distances, timing, like riding a bicycle. You never really forgot. Extraction timeline. We have 48 hours before they move the hostages. After that, they cross into Pakistan, and this becomes a diplomatic nightmare instead of a tactical problem. Rodriguez cleared his throat, first time he'd spoken. With all due respect, this is suicide. 6 operators against 30 fighters in fortified positions. The math doesn't work. The math never works, Jessica said quietly, not looking at him, still studying the imagery. That's why most teams wouldn't try, but most teams aren't built for this. What makes you think we are? She looked up then, met his eyes, saw shame there, embarrassment, but also something else. Willingness, the desire to prove himself, to make amends for the bar incident. Because you're here, she said simply. You could have declined, said no, protected your career and reputation, but you showed up. That tells me you're willing to do what's necessary. Hayes leaned forward. What's the play? Jessica pointed at the satellite image. See this wadi, runs along the western edge of the compound, dry riverbed, natural cover. We insert here at dusk, move through the wadi to within 200 meters, wait for full dark, then we split. She traced routes with her finger. Team Alpha, Fletcher, Rodriguez, Amamira, you create the distraction, north wall, maximum noise. Make them think the assault is coming from there. Draw their forces. While Team Bravo does what? Blackjack asked. Goes in quiet, south wall, Hayes and I breach, extract the hostages, move them back through the wadi to the extraction point. And me, Blackjack asked. Overwatch, high ground here. She pointed to a ridgeline. 300 meters out. You have the best angle on the compound. Anyone who makes it to the walls from the inside gets dropped before they can raise alarm. That's a long shot in low light, Blackjack observed. Not for you. He smiled, small, appreciative. Fair point. Fletcher studied the plan. Biggest risk. Everything, Jessica admitted. The distraction has to be convincing enough to pull their forces, but not so overwhelming that they execute the hostages. Team Bravo has maybe 4 minutes inside before someone realizes the real threat. An extraction under fire with 14 civilians who aren't trained for combat. She paused. It's going to be messy. Most rescue ops are, Fletcher said. He looked around the table. This is voluntary. Anyone wants out, say so now. No judgment, no repercussions. Silence, nobody moved. All right then, Fletcher said. We wheels up in 18 hours. Use the time to prep, rest, and get right with whatever higher power you believe in. The team dispersed, checking gear, running scenarios. Jessica found herself alone with Hayes in the equipment room. I owe you an apology, Hayes said, not making eye contact, inspecting body armor like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. For what? The bar, the assumptions, the condescension. Hayes finally looked up. I spent my entire career fighting to be taken seriously in a male-dominated field, and the first time I encountered another woman who'd achieved more than I ever could, I attacked her. Jessica adjusted the straps on a tactical vest. You were protecting your teammate, I get it. No, I was protecting my ego. Hayes set down the armor. I saw someone I thought was weak, someone I could feel superior to, and when you proved me wrong, it threatened my entire worldview. Your worldview being that I had to be hard, aggressive, more masculine than the men to earn respect. Hayes smiled, sad, self-aware. Then you showed me that real strength is quiet, that you don't need to announce your capabilities to possess them. Jessica thought about that, about all the years she'd spent trying to prove herself in Delta Force, the constant pressure to be better, faster, stronger, the exhausting performance of competence. We're both warriors, Jessica said finally. We just fight different battles. You fight institutional bias. I fought enemy combatants. Neither is more or less important. Hayes nodded. Thank you for that, she paused. And thank you for this, for coming back, for risking yourself for people you don't know. I'm not doing this for them, Jessica said honestly. I'm doing this because someone let me live once, a boy in Kandahar, and he became a teacher. Maybe one of these 14 is someone's boy, someone's daughter. Maybe they become something important, maybe not, but they deserve the chance. That's the job, isn't it? Hayes said, giving people chances they didn't know they had. Yeah, Jessica agreed, that's the job. 18 hours later, they were wheels up. C-130 transport cutting through Afghan airspace at 20,000 feet, the terrain below familiar and foreign at the same time. Jessica had sworn she'd never see these mountains again, never smell this air, never feel this particular combination of adrenaline and dread. But here she was, Viper 1, flying into hell one more time. Amamira sat across from her, reading a Pashto newspaper, not as study material for comfort. She looked up. You're nervous. Always M before insertion. Good means you're still human. Amamira folded the newspaper. I read your file before it was classified beyond my clearance. You know what stood out? What? Mission success rate, perfect. 14 operations, 14 successful extractions, 0 operator casualties, 0 civilian casualties. Amamira leaned forward. How? Jessica considered the question, really considered it. Because I treated every hostage like they were my family, every operator like they were my responsibility, and I never took a shot unless I was absolutely certain it wouldn't create more problems than it solved. That's why they called you Viper, Amamira said. Not because you struck fast, but because you struck when it mattered, precision over aggression. Something like that. The loadmaster gave a 5-minute warning. Time to gear up. Time to become operators instead of people. Time to transform from individuals with names and histories into tactical assets with call signs and objectives. Jessica checked her weapon. Loaded, chambered, safety on. The muscle memory perfect. Like her hands remembered even if her mind wanted to forget. She closed her eyes, breathed. Found that quiet center where fear lived but didn't control. Blackjack appeared beside her. You good? Ask me again in 4 hours. He smiled. Fair enough. He paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. There's nobody I'd rather have leading this. I'm not leading, Fletcher is. Fletcher's running the op. You're leading the mission. There's a difference. Jessica looked at him, saw absolute confidence. Trust earned through blood and bullets, the kind that couldn't be faked or manufactured, only forged. Don't make me carry you out again, she said. Deal, this time I'll carry you. They hit the LZ at dusk. Perfect timing. Enough light to navigate, not enough to be easily spotted. The insertion was clean, no contact, no complications. The wadi exactly where the satellite imagery had shown it. Team Alpha moved north. Team Bravo moved south. Blackjack found his overwatch position, and Jessica settled into the rhythm she'd thought she'd forgotten. Breathing, movement, awareness, everything becoming signal instead of noise. Hayes moved beside her, quiet, competent. Whatever doubts she'd had in the briefing room were gone now. This was a professional, someone who'd done this before, someone who understood that success meant controlling fear, not eliminating it. They reached the south wall, heard voices from inside, laughter. The guards were relaxed, confident, not expecting company. Jessica checked her watch. Team Alpha would initiate in 3 minutes. 3 minutes to get in position, to prepare for the chaos about to unfold. Ready? She whispered to Hayes. Always. The explosion from the north wall lit up the night sky. Not real. Flashbangs and smoke grenades designed to sound and look like mortar fire. The effect was immediate. Shouting, movement, confusion, guards running toward the threat. Jessica and Hayes moved, up and over the wall, into the compound, hearts hammering, weapons up, every sense on fire. Inside they found the teachers, huddled in a storage room, terrified. 14 faces looking up at them with expressions caught between hope and disbelief. Jessica made a quick count, all accounted for. American military, she said in English, then Dari. We're here to get you out. Stay low, stay quiet, do exactly what we say. A man stepped forward, early 40s, beard, glasses. Rashid Ahmadi, I'm the school director. These are my teachers. Not anymore, Jessica said. Right now they're hostages we're extracting. Can you keep them calm? Yes. Then do it. We move in 30 seconds. She keyed her radio. Bravo to all elements. Package secured, moving to extraction. Copy, Fletcher responded. We're about to get loud. And they did. Sustained fire from Team Alpha, making the Taliban believe they were under full assault, drawing every fighter to the north wall, creating a window. Jessica led the teachers through the compound, Hayes covering their rear, every shadow a potential threat, every sound a potential alarm, but they moved, fast, efficient, and they reached the south wall without contact. Getting 14 people over a wall in tactical conditions was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Jessica and Hayes lifted, pushed, guided, got them over one by one, dropped into the wadi, started moving toward the extraction point. That's when the radio crackled, Blackjack's voice, urgent. Viper 1, you have a tail. 2 fighters, south wall, they're tracking you. Jessica stopped the group, signaled Hayes, get them moving, I'll handle the tail. Negative, we stay together. That's not a suggestion, Captain. That's an order. Get them to extraction. I'll catch up. Hayes hesitated, then nodded, started moving the teachers down the wadi. Jessica turned back, moved toward the compound, toward the two fighters who discovered their breach. She found cover behind a rock outcropping, waited, breathing controlled, heart rate steady. The two fighters appeared, young, nervous, sweeping the area with AK-47s. She could drop them, easy shots, but that would alert everyone, bring the whole compound down on the extraction. So she did what Viper 1 did. She moved like smoke, got behind them, used their own momentum against them. 2 seconds, two unconscious fighters, zip-tied and gagged, alive but neutralized. She keyed her radio, tail handled, moving to extraction. But as she turned, she saw him, standing in the shadows, an older man, gray beard, weathered face, not a fighter, something else. He was holding a rifle, but it was pointed at the ground. They locked eyes, and in that moment Jessica saw recognition, not of her specifically, but of what she was, an operator, a professional, someone who could kill him before he could raise that rifle. Go, she said in Pashto, walk away live. The man studied her, then looked at the two unconscious fighters, then back at Jessica. The teachers, he said slowly, they taught my granddaughter to read. Jessica said nothing, just waited. Go, the man said finally. He turned his back, walked toward the compound, didn't look back. Jessica ran, through the wadi, toward the sound of helicopter rotors, toward extraction, toward salvation. She reached the LZ just as Hayes was loading the last teacher. Fletcher appeared beside her, covered in dust and gunpowder residue. Team Alpha's out, we good. We're good. The helicopters lifted. 14 teachers, 6 operators, everyone breathing, everyone whole. The mission parameters met exactly. As they climbed into the night sky, Jessica looked back at the compound, saw fires burning, heard distant shouting, wondered if the old man would face consequences for letting them go, wondered if his granddaughter would ever know what her ability to read had cost him. Rashid appeared beside her, sat down, thank you. Jessica nodded, too exhausted for words. My teachers, he continued, they're good people, they just wanted to help, to educate, to make a difference. I know. Why did you risk this? You don't know us. Jessica looked at him, saw genuine confusion, the inability to understand why strangers would fight for strangers, and she realized that was the difference. For Rashid, education was an act of faith. For Jessica, rescue was an act of faith. Both required believing that people were worth the risk. Because someone once let me make a choice, she said finally, and that choice led to a better life. Your teachers deserve the same opportunity. Rashid was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. The boy soldier, the one you didn't shoot, he's my nephew. He told me about you, about the American operator who gave him mercy. Jessica stared, processing. He became a teacher. Because of you, because you showed him that strength isn't about killing. It's about choosing when not to kill. Rashid paused. He's one of the 14 you just saved. And just like that, the circle closed. The choice made 11 years ago in the darkness. The mercy extended, coming back around, creating ripples she'd never imagined. What will you do now? Jessica asked. Rebuild, teach, refuse to let fear win. Rashid looked at his teachers, huddled together, processing their ordeal. And remember that sometimes ghosts protect us. The helicopter carried them toward safety, toward debriefing, toward the world where this mission never happened, and these people were never saved by operators who didn't exist. But Jessica knew the truth. Sometimes the most important work happens in shadows. Sometimes the greatest victories are the ones nobody sees. And sometimes mercy creates more change than violence ever could. Viper 1 had walked into hell and walked back out, not because she was the deadliest, but because she understood that protecting the innocent sometimes meant fighting, and sometimes meant choosing not to fight, the wisdom to know the difference, that was the real skill, the one that mattered most. As they crossed into friendly airspace, Jessica closed her eyes, thought about the boy who'd become a teacher, the man who'd let her go, the 14 lives saved, the ripples extending outward in ways she'd never see. And she thought maybe, just maybe, being a ghost wasn't about killing. It was about protecting, about moving through the world doing what was necessary while asking for nothing in return. Sometimes dignity doesn't announce itself. It simply acts, quiet, unbreakable, leaving only echoes in its wake.